Hey everyone, welcome back to Creekside Homestead, Alaska. You're probably wondering why I'm holding this big bowl of flour, and it's because I need to restock a bunch of freezer items that I am out of or very low on. And I just thought, with the way things are in the grocery stores right now, I would take 5 pounds of flour and show you what I can make with it versus what you're gonna pay at the grocery store and see if it's worth it. Now, I already know the answer to that for me and our family. The answer is yes. Simply because I know what's going into what I'm about to make. So aside from that, at the very end of this, I will show you the cost comparison and you can decide if it's something you wanna set aside a couple of hours when you have some time to make these, get your freezer stocked and not have to worry about it. This will probably get us through about a month. So my plan today is to make sandwich bread. I'm completely out of it. So I need to make that, and I need to make flour tortillas. I'm very, very low, and we go through quite a bit of those in a month. So I'm gonna try and make those. And again, I haven't done this before, so I don't know what 5 pounds of flour is gonna get me, but this is my plan. So sandwich bread, flour tortillas, bagels, completely out of Sean's favorite jalapeno cheddar bagels. So I need to get a batch of those done. I'm gonna try and make some cookies because the holidays are coming up and I don't like to spend a ton of time when family is here making batches and batches of cookies and breads and rolls. So I try and do that all in advance and get those in the freezer. And with what I'm making today, I'll keep half of it out of the freezer and then half of it I will put away so that I don't have to worry about it in a couple of weeks. We're good to go. So we're gonna start with making the bread and the bagel dough because that has to proof. And while that's proofing, we'll move on to the flour tortillas and the cookies because those don't take very much time. So join me. Okay, so we're gonna get started with the sandwich bread. Now this is going to make 2 loaves of bread. So it's gonna be quite a bit of flour. But we've got 5 pounds to work with. So I'm just starting with, I've got my water, yeast, and sugar in here, and it's 2 cups of warm water to 2, so it's 2 packets of active yeast, dry active yeast. If you're buying them in the packets at the store, I don't, I buy it in bulk. So that would be 4.5 teaspoons of yeast to 4.5 teaspoons of sugar, regular sugar. And that's been sitting in here for about 5 minutes until it gets nice and foamy. And then we're just gonna add our oil, salt, and flour. I'm using canola oil today. That's what I have on hand when I rarely pan fry or need it for just a neutral flavor. That's what I'm trying to go for. You could also use, I guess, avocado oil. I don't have any, and that's gonna affect the final cost as well. So I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible, very few ingredients, just so you can get food in your freezer at a good cost. So again, we're gonna do, oh, let me get a butter knife. So we're gonna do 5.5 cups of just all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour if you want, which is what I normally do, but it is more expensive. And again, we're trying to see what we can get out of a 5 pound bag. Okay, let me pay attention here. That's 2. I do this. I get to talking and forget where I'm at in the count. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're just going to eyeball the half there, 5.5. And then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of oil. 2 teaspoons of salt. 2 teaspoons, right? 1, 2. And we're just going to give that a stir. Now this is going to actually make 4 half loaves for us. So I'm going to make the 2 loaves, get those baked up, and then before they go in the freezer, I will cut each one in half, leave half in the bread box, and then I'll put the other halves in the freezer. And that's because we have found, since it's just me and Sean, all of our kids are adults and out of the house, we find that we just don't go through a whole loaf of bread, and I used to end up throwing half of it away. So it works for us to do that. It stretches it a little bit farther. So if there's only a couple of you in the house, maybe that would work for you, and it would take you through the entire month. All right, so we're getting this all mixed up. I'm going to be using my stand mixer to knead this and finish it off. If you don't have a stand mixer, at this point you can dump it out onto a floured counter and knead it for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm getting older, so kneading for that long is not good on the hands for me. So I'm going to utilize my stand mixer. And that's going to go for about 5 to 7 minutes on the stand mixer until it forms into a nice ball, and you'll know when it's good to go. But I'll show you. All right, I'm going to let that go for a few minutes, and it's on level 2 if you're using your stand mixer. I'll see you back here in about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so that took 8 minutes, and I did have to add a little more flour, probably a couple tablespoons. And you'll find that you have to do that. You have to use up an additional 1/4 cup of flour to get what you're looking for, which is this. I don't want it to be, it's still a little slightly tacky maybe, but I want to be able to roll it around in my hands and not get dough all over my hands. So that's what we've got. So now I've got this lightly oiled, very lightly, I just oiled it with a paper towel. We're going to put that in there. I'm going to roll it around so it gets a little bit of that oil on all of it so it doesn't dry out. And then I'm going to take my proofing cap. I mean, it's a shower cap, but in the baking world, they're called proofing caps. And these are awesome. I absolutely love having these. You could just cover it with a tea towel, damp tea towel if you want, but this just saves having to wet a tea towel for me. And these are just super inexpensive. Got them off of Amazon. I will link them in the description box if you're interested. But yeah, super handy to have around. So now I'm just going to put this dough. This is going to go in my oven because I have a proofing button on here that I use. And so I've had this going, and what I'm going to do is just stick it in the oven, and then I'm going to turn that bread proofing off. No need for me to keep it on for an hour while it doubles. You could also leave it out on your counter. Just make sure you're in a warm environment, or else it's not going to, it's going to just take forever to double in size. You could also have the light on in your oven and just watch it. And then if it starts to get too warm in there, just turn the oven light off, just like the proofing button. But, oh, I have a pan in there, as usual. So that's going to go in there. And I'm going to let that double in size, probably take about an hour. And then while that's doing that, we're going to move on to the bagels. Moving on to the bagels. Now I'm making jalapeno cheddar bagels because that's what we like, but you can stop this at a certain point if you just want to do plain bagels, or add other like, what is it, the bagel seasoning. You can add that, you can leave them plain, you can add sea salt to the top, whatever you want. But my basic water, 2¼ I think 2¼ cups for this one. 2¼ cups of warm water to 1.5 tablespoons of yeast, again, dry active yeast, and 2 tablespoons of regular sugar. Went in here for about 5 minutes till it's all foamy. We're just going to add our flour. And this is going to be, we're going to start off with 5½ cups of flour again, just like we did with the bread. But we're probably going to have to add another ½ cup. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and wipe all that. So it's about 5½ cups. Look, we're getting down there. Now, if you didn't want to make these bagels, if bagels aren't your thing, you can certainly double that bread recipe and get yourself 4 loaves of bread, which can go in the freezer. And that's probably the most I would do for the freezer. You don't want them in there more than a couple months. For us, the texture just gets a little off, so I try not to do more than a couple of months of bread products, except for banana bread and zucchini bread. That lasts, seems to be forever, but in the freezer. Okay, I'm getting off track here. So we added our flour, and we're going to add a 1.5 teaspoons of salt. No, tablespoon. This one's a tablespoon. So we're going to add a tablespoon of salt and 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm only going to add 2 tablespoons because I don't want them to be super sweet. I already had that sugar in there from before with the yeast. Now that's just to feed the yeast, but okay, where's my thing? Got my dough whisk, and we're just going to get that all mixed up. And again, if you want to stop here, put this on the stand mixer, or once it comes together with your dough whisk or your hands, you can knead it on a counter. Probably again take about 8 to 10 minutes. In the mixer, it's going to take about 5 to 6 minutes. Let me get this stuff out of the way. All right, so it's got that coming together pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is get it on the stand mixer. And this is where I add the jalapenos and the cheese. And I probably got about, I don't know, 3 jalapenos here. These were left over from when I did my canning, pickled jalapenos and cowboy candy. So I just buy a big bag from Costco, we also had some I had to use of our fresh ones. So I just take that bag and chop them all up. And then I'm going to add some cheese. This is probably about ½ cup of shredded cheese. You can use fresh shredded cheese from the block. That probably makes it a little bit more cost effective. This is what I had in my fridge, so for me it's cost effective. And Sean likes to use our block cheese as snacking cheese. So the rest of this cheese I'm going to use to sprinkle on top after we've formed our bagels. But for now, this is going to go on the stand mixer for about 6 minutes. Okay, so that took right at 6 minutes, and I did have to add that extra half a cup of flour to get the consistency that I want, which is this. And so now I'm just taking my dough and I'm forming them into just dough balls for now. I should get, hopefully, about 8. I usually do them about 4 ounces. And yes, you can eyeball it. I like to weigh it. I like them all to be about the same. So I'm going to do 4-ounce ones, which makes a pretty decent size if you want to put cream cheese on it, if you want to make a sandwich. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm out of dough. Okay, so I'm done with that. I'm not quite sure what I was thinking. I get 12 bagels, not 8. Anyway, so I've got 12. Now, if you wanted to make them bigger, like 6 ounces, you get roughly about 8 very large bagels. But again, I'm trying to get stuff in the freezer. I'm trying to get as much out of this 5 pounds of flour that I can get and get some in storage. So 4 ounces got me 12 bagels, decent, very decent sized bagels. I'm going to cover these for about 5 minutes with a tea towel. I just have them on a parchment lined cutting board, and I'm going to let these rest, and then we're going to form them into our bagel shapes. They're going to rest again, and while that's happening, we're going to move on to probably the flour tortillas, are what's most important next. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, and I had to test one out to see if it was ready to go, and it is. It's nice and relaxed, easy to form. So now I'm just I already did that one, so we'll place that one there. Get this tea towel out of the way. So you're just going to take your dough, form them into a bagel shape, stick your finger in there, and you don't want to handle it too much, but just get it into it doesn't have to be perfect. And just remember that they are going to expand a little bit, so that hole is going to close up just a little. So just make them however big you want, and then we're going to put them on that pan, and then we're going to let these sit covered for about 45 minutes or so. Okay, so those are all formed. Look good. I'm just going to cover these up with tea towels and set them on the counter for about 45 minutes. And before we move on to the flour tortillas, I'm going to check my bread dough and see how it's looking. Put these off to the side here. Check our bread. Oh, wow. Okay, it's ready. So bread dough has definitely doubled in size. I would say it's been in there probably 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So before I move on to the tortillas, we're going to get this shaped and into our bread loaf pans. Okay, I've got my loaf pan, my bread pans out. I've lightly sprayed them, and I put a little piece of parchment paper on the bottom of my pans. Just helps it when it comes out to not stick to the bottom. If you don't have parchment paper, you could just sprinkle a little bit of flour, very little flour, on the bottom of those, and that'll just help. I need to get my breadboard out. We're gonna dust this with a little bit of flour. Let me get my pretty mat out of here. Okay, got the bread dough, and I'm just going to punch this down, and then we're gonna eyeball it in half. I know, I measure my bagel dough, but I don't measure my bread dough. Okay, then we're just gonna put this out on to a floured board. And I'm just gonna gently stretch it out. You could use your fingers. And I'm going to try and get it to about the length of this bread pan. I don't use a rolling pin. I know some people do, but I don't. I just find that stretching it with my hands, it just keeps it a little more fluffy on the inside, you know, like sandwich bread is supposed to be. All right, I think that looks good. Again, it's gonna have to do one more rise, so this does not have to be perfect. That looks good. It's a little longer, but we're tucking in the ends here. So now I'm just going to roll it up fairly tight. I'm going to tuck in these ends. And that's all there is to it. Get it in our pan. Tuck. Tuck. That looks good. Get it into our pan. Again, cover these with tea towel and let it rise. Now we're going to let this rise until it just gets to the top of our pan, which is probably going to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Moving on to the flour tortillas. Super simple. Takes 2 3/4 cups of flour. Again, this is just all-purpose flour from that 5-pound bag. Let's do it this way. That's 2 3/4. Put that back there. And a teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. 1, 2, 1.5. I think I did 3 teaspoons of salt. It'll be all right. Sorry, Sean, might be a little salty. Okay, and then I've got 6 tablespoons of lard here. You can also use shortening Lard is just what I have on hand, so that's what I'm using. But you want to get that all incorporated until it's just crumbly, I guess is the word. Okay. Now we're going to add 2 3/4 cups of warm water to this. And we're going to get that, I'm using my dough whisk. You can use your hands. I am not using the mixer for this. You certainly can. It looks like I'm probably gonna have to add some more flour to this. I'm not using the stand mixer because you want it until it just comes together. It's still gonna be probably a little lumpy. Yeah, I'm gonna need to use some more flour for this. Probably gonna another 1/2 cup of flour in there. It's just been the theme today, it seems. I've had to add more flour to each recipe. I did too much. Okay. It's a good thing I doubled the salt because this is just not looking like dough is supposed to look for me, and I just realized why. Because I was not paying attention to my own recipe and I doubled the amount of water to flour. So now I need to add 2 cups more flour, which is going to give us double the amount of tortillas, but that's okay because we're doing this for storage. But we'll see if I get to do cookies now. Because I'm not adding more flour, we're just trying to see what we can use here. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I did. Okay, well, you know. I might have to use all of this flour. I will probably not make it to the cookies today. I don't know though. We'll see. Okay, so I think I saved my mistake. We'll see. I did have to use all of that, so we'll see how many tortilla balls we get out of this. Now you're just gonna roll them into balls. We're gonna be rolling these out into about 8 to 9 inch circles. And I'm still a little wet, but we're gonna go with it because I don't have any more flour. I mean, I should get quite a few out of here. I'm hoping for 20. All right, I've got those all formed up, and I was able to get actually 26 out of those, so that was good. Again, I wasn't paying full attention, added way too much water, so I had to double the recipe. But we got 26 tortillas. That's gonna last us hopefully all month. Sean loves tortillas. So now we're just gonna get these covered, wash my hands, get them covered, and those are gonna sit for about 30 minutes, just to let that dough relax up a little bit so we can roll them out. All right, those are covered. Get those on the counter. Then I'm going to get this kitchen cleaned up while everything is resting. Okay, so just checked on my bread loaves and they are perfect, ready to go in the oven. So I've got my oven set, preheated to 350. Got my rack on the middle rack, and we're just going to stick those in at 350 for about 40 minutes. I'm going to set my timer to 35 minutes to check them then, but it'll probably go right at 40. And then we'll get our water boiling while those are cooking, and we'll get going on our bagels. All right, so I checked this at 35 minutes. It still needed a couple more minutes, the bread did, so it went the full 40 minutes. And so now we're going to take it out. Gorgeous. Look at that. We're going to get those on a cooling rack. And I'm going to, oh my goodness, that just turned out perfect. Brush the tops of those with a little bit of butter, and I've got water going in my pot for the bagels. I'm going to put the oven to 400. I'm going to let these cool on the cooling rack in the pan for about 10 minutes, and then we'll take them out of the pan and put them back on the cooling rack until they are completely cooled off. All right, so our bagels are ready to go in our water. They look great, beautiful. So in my pot, I added about 3 to 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. And now it's all up, coming to a simmer. So I've done a video on bagels before, but all I'm going to do, dunk the bagels in the water for 30 to 45 seconds aside, put them on the pan, top them, or if you're leaving them plain, you can just do a egg wash over the top of them, and they go in the oven for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. And then we'll show you what looks like at the end. Now don't worry if these deflate when you're taking them off the paper. They're going to puff back up in the oven. And I'm doing about 2 at a time. I cannot wait to do the cost comparison on these to see what all of this. I already know buying a bag of jalapeno cheddar bagels, number one, they're hard to find unless you get them fresh at the bakery, and they are not cheap. But for my cost comparison, I'm keeping it inexpensive, so I'm going to be using the comparison of as much generic brands as I can find at the cheapest place to compare to the 5-pound bag of flour. All right, so that looks good. Those are going to go on that cookie sheet, and my cookie sheet's lined with a silicone mat. And then we're just going to keep going. Okay, so we're gonna finish up with our flour tortillas, and it is actually the next day. I got into something else yesterday, and so I just put these tortilla balls in the refrigerator overnight, and that's totally fine. You could do it. I think you can probably leave it in there for 3 days. I would probably only go a max of 2, but overnight is perfectly fine. And we're just gonna take our dough ball and put some flour on it, and then I'm gonna roll it out to like an 8 or 9 inch circle, as thin as you can get it. So depending on the size of your ball, it's gonna be between an 8 to 10 inch circle, and you just keep flouring when it sticks. Now, this is where a tortilla press would come in very handy. I'm not sure why I don't have one. I have a lot of gadgets, so maybe that's, I just didn't want another gadget, but I'm getting a tortilla press. With as many of these that I make, I just can't believe I don't have one yet. But here we are with my rolling pin. And so it does get, you know, a little time consuming if you have as many to do as I did, or as I do. So invest in a tortilla press. So once this is all rolled out, and oops, make sure you have your skillet heating up. Mine, I always use cast iron, and I just have it, right now I have it on low because I've already been doing a few of these. And if you use cast iron, you know, once it heats up, it retains heat very well, even a little too much, or a little too well, I should say. So I just have it on low. I started out on medium. If you're using like a nonstick pan, I would probably do medium high. And there's no oil or anything in this, it's just a dry pan. And we're just gonna get this rolled out, and then we're going to put it in the skillet for 45 seconds to a minute on each side. And again, you want these as paper thin as possible. Now, I suppose if you want the gordita style, which is a little thicker, you could probably roll them out a little thicker, turn the heat down lower, and put them in the skillet for a little longer. But I'm just doing your normal flour tortillas. That's all there is to it. Now we're going to get this down in the cast iron skillet. 45 seconds, minutes per side. And then I'm just going to keep doing that until these are all done. And then we'll show you what all a 5-pound bag of flour makes. For me anyways. Okay, so all done. Let's wrap up what we've done with 5 pounds of flour. And this is just regular all-purpose flour, unbleached. So we've got our 2 loaves of bread, and I'm going to give you the comparison. I figured out what it would cost to buy 2 loaves of bread from the store, and I went the cheapest route. So of course, if you want better bread, you're going to pay more. 2 loaves of store-bought generic brand bread was $5 total. From scratch, and we know what ingredients are going into this, $2.08 for 2 loaves. That's $1 a loaf. Our bagels, now this got a little pricier just because of the jalapenos and the cheddar cheese, but if you were to buy them from the store, you'd have to buy 2 6-counts, or 2 bags of 6 each. Total of $9.60. Making them from scratch, $6.08. Now, if you were to omit the jalapenos and the cheddar and just did plain bagels, bought those from the store, you'd pay $5 for the generic brand bagels. From scratch, $2.58 for 12 bagels. The flour tortillas are the biggest saver. I was actually kind of shocked when I did this. Store-bought flour tortillas are getting more and more expensive. So you can get them in the 10 count of the soft flour tortilla generic brand. And I got them at $7. And that would be for a total of 20 flour tortillas. Making them from scratch, I was able to get 26. And it was $2.08. That is crazy. That is $5 difference. So there you have it. And I will put those totals up on the screen so you can see that. But as you can tell, I've got a month's worth of products that I can throw in the freezer. And like I said before, I cut this bread in half and throw those in the freezer. And that'll last Shauna and I probably a month because we don't go through that much bread. Bagels might be a different story. I might have to make another batch in about 2 to 3 weeks, but we'll see how far it gets us. The flour tortillas will definitely last us a month with this many. So hope you enjoyed that comparison. I certainly learned a lot. Is it worth it? Absolutely 100% for our family, because we know exactly what is going into what I make from scratch. And the next time you are at the store and grab that loaf of bread, just flip it over and take a look at the ingredients. I have a feeling you're going to want to start making it from home. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.